The idea now is to go quickly through the learnings and the lessons of everything we heard. I really enjoy this one because it's moderate the moderators. But in any case, I mean, I really appreciate everything you did for this conference. I think it was worth it for you as well. I think it was informative. I appreciate you sharing your knowledge and your expertise as well. So I think this is the proper format to sum up what we learned and what we heard. Chris, we spoke yesterday about these markets. I mean, you, at least from my perspective, you're one of the absolute non-biased and top experts for the Central and Eastern Europe region. Is there anything new or unexpected that you heard yesterday and today with regards to this particular region?
Well, I moderated 2 panels yesterday afternoon, which feels like a lifetime ago. So I found this morning quite intense. I think the point that stood out to me actually quite a bit was from the first panel, and that was Max Ziff, yep. The CEO of Bulls.com, when he started discussing piracy in Bulgaria. I found that quite a few of the stats he mentioned were quite surprising, quite worrying in fact. I also tried to steer the conversation actually a bit towards Bulgaria because the majority of the audience were from Bulgaria, and I wanted him to actually discuss something about what he felt about the market in Bulgaria itself. So yeah, from that perspective, it was I was actually quite, well, perhaps not surprised, but I was certainly I didn't realise that the piracy issue was as serious as it is in Bulgaria. And also, I think an important point he made was he discussed the change of ownership of Nova TV and how he felt it was a positive thing, and how this would actually help combat piracy in a way. So I thought that was quite useful. By implication, that was, I suppose, the fact, well, maybe the Modern Times Group, they were pulling out this country for a little while, and as you know, they failed to sell Nova to PPF Group last year, and perhaps there was some kind of a drift at the station. Maybe now under new Bulgarian ownership, things will improve quite a bit.
One of the phenomena happening right now in this region is the changes of ownership. It's investments and divestments. I mean, to a certain level, a number of well-known Western European-based, or even further than that, big communication companies or media companies that have invested in the past 15 years, now they're stepping out. I mean, the example I gave was Telenor.
Liberty.
Deutsche Telekom as well is, I mean, there are discussions about something that may happen very soon in the region. A1 obviously stays. However, CME is for sale. I mean, they did sell some assets in Slovenia. In Croatia, also the regulator blocked it. But now it's very clear that Romania, Bulgaria are the next markets they're going to step out. Nova in Greece is definitely in trouble as well. How do you rationalize that, Chris? I mean, what do you think is happening in this region? Is it like basically those big foreign investors came here, took all the money, and they're walking out? Or you think this is just a different kind of dynamics that require different investors?
Different companies are moving out for different reasons. Modern Times Group, for instance, they were very big throughout the region. Bulgaria was the last market that they've pulled out of. And the reasons in that instance actually go back to Russia. They got their hands burnt there very much by the change in ownership rules. And I know they desperately tried to stay there.
The assets, right?
Yeah, so they moved out there, and they moved out of Ukraine, and they moved out of Czech Republic, and they moved out of here as well. So they've gone. They've gone for a specific reason. They completely changed their business model. They focused on Scandinavia and esports and what have you. So it's very different in their case. With Liberty Global again, they are, in my view, saying the long goodbye, not just to Central and Eastern Europe, but also to Western Europe. And the deal with Vodafone is quite probably going to go through pretty soon now. And so they'll be exiting Germany, Czech Republic, Romania, and Hungary. They'll be left with Poland and Slovakia. And I won't be surprised if they move out there sooner rather than later. And their biggest asset right now is Virgin Media in the UK and Ireland. And I'll be surprised if they sell them eventually as well. Mm-hmm. And Vodafone could be a possible buyer there too, because at the end of the day, Vodafone don't have a video business in the UK, and that would increase their presence enormously. Telenor, again, it's a strategic thing to move out of Central and Eastern Europe. I think they basically have moved out of broadcast in this part of the world. They've been focusing very much on maritime. So although obviously they're still big in Scandinavia, their home market, as far as this part of the world is concerned, they're not really interested and haven't been for a long time to come. I know that for personal reasons because my company used to work quite closely with them in organising conferences in this part of the world, including one here in Sofia about 4 or 5 years ago, when they were very much into this region. Mm. But then, like I say, their strategy changed completely. So the answer to your question is that every company has a different reasons for moving out or changing. And Deutsche Telekom, which you mentioned as well, I think it's a case of realignment more than anything with Deutsche Telekom. I think they're focusing more on certain markets, less so on others. And they keep on denying they're going to move out of Hungary. There's also a case of, say, maybe T-Mobile, for instance. You know, there's been talk about them moving into Poland, mm-hmm. possibly buying Liberty's operation there. Yep. So I think it's a case of watch this space. The general thing is that consolidation continues, M&As continue.
But if I can more or less sum it up, what you're just saying is, it's not that actually the region is not interesting or there is nothing happening. It's for every case there is a reason which is...
Yeah, not just that. A very important point is that some local companies are buying up these assets. Mm-hmm.
Which is fantastic for the local economy.
Well, it's here in Bulgaria. It's also true in, say, the Czech Republic with PPF Group, who bought up, was it Digi's assets? Well, I can't remember exactly what they bought up. O2, precisely, yeah. So bear them in mind as well. Mm-hmm. And of course, there's major players like Digital Communications, RCS and RDS. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I think that's also a very interesting trend to watch out for.
Digi in Czech Republic also, it's a local investor, Lima, the energy company.
Lama Energy Group, correct. Yeah.
Fantastic. Maria, you have been all around the world, and your company works with more than 70 telecoms, I think, and
yes.
operators, etc. The focus is collecting data and analyzing it. You heard us talk about carrier billing and like transformation of the business in general. Is it something that you actually really have records of it? Is it a fact? Is it just something that we talk here just to keep it interesting and entertain the audience? Or based on your research, you definitely notice that the industry is transforming because it has to?
Yes, of course, the industry is transforming because it has to, not only in Eastern Europe, every country in the world where we go, companies have to adapt to a major phenomenon that is the global tech players. How can you compete these days with Amazon, with Netflix, with Google, if you don't have that scale, if you cannot operate globally? So I have been traveling a lot, you are correct. I have been in Japan 1 month ago. Usually operators in Japan, they usually said, oh, we don't care about data from other countries, we only care about Japan. But then I told them, other companies care about Japan. Like Amazon will be the #1 video player in Japan. So every single country in the world needs to look internationally, doesn't work to look at your national market and close your eyes to the rest of the world. Because if you do, these big players will come and will eat you. So transformation is happening in every single country. Consolidation is happening everywhere. And yes, there is transformation that companies have to see what are the strengths, how can they make the most of their local expertise, the local knowledge of their customers, and how can they monetize that. So another key word in this conference, I think, is partnerships. If you cannot compete against them, join forces with them. But again, be careful who do you choose as a partner, because you want to work together, but you don't want your partners to kill you neither. So it's a very difficult balance who to partner. Choose very well your partners.
I kind of agree with this one. I also think that focus on core and knowing who you are as a business, as a purpose, is very important. So that's why I was more or less saying, let's never forget that Amazon is a retail company,
yes,
that the telco is a broadband company,
yes,
and Netflix is a studio.
Yes.
Netflix practically is a studio. Netflix is not a pay TV operator or a distributor of content. You see how much content they're producing these days as well. So, at least from my perspective, 3-4 years ago, I would never say that Netflix, I would always say Netflix is endangering, like disrupting the ecosystem, etc. But these days, this is actually not reality. Netflix, they are even selling their own content for distribution on linear, on the second release window, on the third release window as well. Do you agree with that as well?
I completely agree. I always said since Netflix started, we always thought it should be a fantastic partner for any operator. Also, I think Netflix personally, it has been doing very good for local production companies. I live in London. Thanks to Netflix, I'm able to watch Spanish local series that I wouldn't be able to watch.
They're fantastic, by the way, yeah.
For example, La Casa de Papel, Money Heist. If you haven't watched it, you should. But in Spain, that series was not popular at all. They tried to sell it to other companies. Nobody wanted La Casa de Papel. It's too Spanish, it's too for the local market. Netflix bought it, it became a global phenomenon, the #1 series non-English language. So I think people need someone like Netflix to do something, and then everyone follows. Oh, they were so lucky, they are doing this, they're doing that. I don't think they're disruptors. I think they're doing something very well that then everyone wanted to copy. Now everyone wants to do the same, go direct to the consumer. But of course, not everyone is Netflix, and many direct to the consumer services are failing. So they cannot compete on their own. They need to be part of a telco or Amazon or Apple or another big player. But definitely Netflix, I see it more as a friend than an enemy. Other players you mentioned there, they are challenges, so you have to think better. Netflix for sure, if you are a pay TV operator, a telco, cable, no danger in having Netflix on your platform. Another issue is if Netflix wants to be in your platform, because now they are so powerful that now they're difficult to get. So I know companies, they want to embrace Netflix, but now they're the ones saying, we don't need you. Why should we have a partnership with you if you only have 1,000 clients?
Every company has to have its own DNA and not go outside of it. I mean, Thierry, Huawei, they are almost a media company these days as well. I mean, is Harmonic becoming a media company?
Well, no. Let's be very clear. Now I take my Harmonic hat. So Harmonic has realized that the cloud technology can be disruptive and transformative. For example, we have 2 examples of one telco, Telkomsel, who came to us 6 weeks before the World Cup, and they said, we are going to give away on our mobile network the World Cup matches. Indonesia has 195 million inhabitants. Telkomsel is the #1 operator. So if you want to build such a service with the classical approach, the RFP, the data center, the engineering team, it's not 6 weeks, it's probably 6 to 12 months. So cloud enables new practices, but we do not want to change our role. We just want to enable content provider or operator who decide not to invest anymore in special events such as the World Cup, the Olympics, and we are amazed to see, I'm going to give you a number which are public number. Harmonic has 6.7 million OTT subscribers that we manage through our customers. As a matter of fact, we are number one operator on OTT live service on the planet. That's a data. That's a fact.
Yeah.
And to do that is because we have built the technology, a bit like Amazon for live, Netflix, and we can enable services. And we can pick a spike. I just read the Hotstar 18.6 million concurrent session on Akamai. We don't do that, but it's possible with the cloud technology. That's the new thing.
Yeah, but this is a technical, this is more of a like normal development in the technology companies, like out of solution providers to become service providers. But
we enable the service provider to do a service without having technical teams.
Okay.
So it's a business transformation.
the other
It's not
question,
only a technology, it's a business transformation. We talk to marketing people in our customers who tell us, I don't want to put my engineers on this topic. You can do it faster. So we talk to you.
The other question I have for you is, we heard so many things, demand, content, distribution, telcos, transformation, etc. Where is the technology these days? I mean, everyone talks about digital, and it's not just talking, I mean, it's happening.
Yes.
So everything is digital distribution. Even if a telco stays in the game or pay TV operator stay in the game, they need the technology. Technologies are going to be changing. I mean,
Yes.
it was analog until 10, 15 years ago. Now
Digital-
it's IPTV and DOCSIS. It's going to be IPTV version 2, 3, etc.
Two.
But right now,
Yes.
I mean, where is the state of the industry right now? Is it there yet?
So satellite, no big changes. Cable moving to IP, which
Okay.
means at some time they will drop the QAM.
ABR,
There will be ABR, of course. Telco.
adaptive bit rate.
Telco who have done IPTV, IP multicast are transitioning to all ABR on their managed network, and they also want to take this feed to their competitors' network.
Do
In
we have
order
enough networks worldwide to basically take the load of 4K, 8K, HDR content?
Okay, so let's talk about
because
4K.
there is so much content being produced. I mean, we live in fantastic times. There is so much drama.
So if I
etc.,
take
but-
4K example,
yeah.
how many people are going to watch a 4K live stream in parallel? Do you know how many people were on BBC iPlayer service during the World Cup?
I have no idea. That's why I'm asking you.
That's why I'm answering. I'm asking my own question. It's like the politician. Does anyone know? So BBC iPlayer was broadcasting to anybody downloading the app on their connected TV the World Cup free of charge. Does anybody know how many sessions BBC was able to serve during the World Cup? Maria?
100,000.
100,000, let's see.
I will let you answer the question. I don't want to steal the spotlight.
50,000 simultaneous sessions.
Parallel sessions.
And this was maxing out Akamai network in UK. But the good news is the quality was decent. 90% of the people could access to the UHD profile, which means it's not outside of the reach. The question is, this is 1%, BBC iPlayer is 1% of the broadcast viewership. At 1%, you
So we're
saturated.
not there yet. Yeah?
So that's why I said in my presentation, if you remember, I say telco with a managed network have a bright future because they can serve the people with a high quality of experience. If you remember my Netflix comparison, the reason I'm putting Netflix in the front row is because it works, people like it, and I think it's going to be the reference. So yes, you can give away service for free with a poor quality of experience. No, you cannot monetize a poor quality of experience.
I have a funny case, actually. It was maybe 6-7 years ago here in Bulgaria. I said, okay, let's make a change in the market. Let's put all of the whole basic package only with HD channels, like VTV, etc. We did, and unfortunately on Sunday evening there was the final of The Voice, I think, one of the formats. Let's say that very quickly we rolled back to SD because the network was not able to sustain that for sure.
And if you remember my story when I presented the OTT QoE, how can you reach the broadcast quality? Our customers during the World Cup went back to SD On mobile, it's okay. On the 4K TV, it's not okay. So that's why we are working on how to optimize the network in order to absorb all those peaks of traffic. Because yes, during the final of The Voice, and if Bulgaria goes to the World Cup whatsoever, it's huge traffic. And if you don't have a capability to scale, you have a black eye the day after, front page of the national newspaper. Look what happened to Australia. They tried to do the World Cup on the mobile, whatever, or mobile operator having a very poor fixed network infrastructure. It blew up. The Prime Minister phoned the CEO and said, tomorrow you give your license to free-to-air because at least this worked. So you know that you have to be prepared. And I think cloud is one element, not the only one, to scale. Yeah. I'm always joking when I see people struggling with signing up 100,000 subscribers, while at the same time you have 4 million in Indonesia watching the World Cup, which means...
Doesn't look like a very optimistic forecast.
You need to be prepared. You need to be prepared with the right technology. As George Bush would say, don't underestimate the technology.
Yeah, but with live sports there are lots of issues, Thierry, as you know, even with the smaller events and the World Cup, even with Formula One, when they launch in many countries, first days they fail, they collapse. So I think live sports is still challenging to do it just streaming, because you have latency, you have lots of issues, so you don't want to watch a game and hearing the scores from people next to you. And those issues have not been solved, but probably they will be solved with 5G.
5G, yes. Saving the planet.
But it will fix some of the latency issues, live sports.
Yes, but again, talk to operators, ask them what they think of 5G. They're still scratching their head. How many cells to deploy and what's the business model behind? That's why the terrestrial broadcast is still a very efficient way to reach the mass. Can you do it in an interactive way back to the targeted advertisement? No. Can you have technology to do it smarter, HbbTV? Yes. So people need to think a bit more how to scale and how to monetize. And sometimes it's not the same technology.
Okay. Chris, I noticed you were taking a lot of notes during the super aggregation discussion. What impressed you most? Because you were really looking very interested. I mean, is there something new or different you heard during this discussion?
The super aggregation, that was your panel?
Yes.
It was.
Yeah.
No, what struck me actually, have you seen Broadband TV News yet?
No.
Well, you make the lead story.
Wow.
Oh, great.
There was one already.
No. The point you actually made about in your previous role at A1, having knocked on the doors of people like Netflix and Amazon, what have you, and them not just being interested.
Yeah, the doors were closed, now they're open.
And this was 5 years ago, and a couple of years ago things changed. So essentially there has been a transition there in their attitude to telcos. Yeah, because in a way there's been, like you said, a saturation. They almost reached a saturation point in the way they were distributing their content, and so they opened the doors eventually to telcos like A1. Yeah. So that was the point you made, and that sort of stuck in my mind.
Thank you. So it's becoming a little bit painful, to be honest. I mean, last question for each one of you. Did you enjoy Webit? Would you come again, Maria?
I really enjoyed
Valencia.
the show. I really enjoyed the show despite my personal injuries. I think it's a great event. Lots of different topics, lots of different tents to attend. So congratulations, very good presentations. I did learn new things.
Thank you.
As he said,
your contribution as well, of course.
Very interesting points, like the one he mentioned about you working as a telco, knocking doors and then they were closed. I always thought it was the opposite. So definitely has been great. Next year is in Spain, so probably will be more sunny than here.
I don't know, we normally come with the rain.
No. It's not difficult, it's raining like crazy outside.
I hope to see you and all of you next year in Valencia.
Same here. Chris?
Yeah, from my perspective, I cover the Central and Eastern European region, so the last couple of years this has been a must-attend event for me. And I learn something new every time. last year I moderated a panel on fake news, which I found fascinating. I think that went down very well.
Yeah.
And this year I did 2 panels, and I think both of them were quite interesting. And yeah, I look forward to next year, hopefully coming along to Valencia as well. Change of environment, better weather.
Thank you.
Yeah, very much so.
Thank you. Thierry?
Okay, so first of all, thank you for inviting me. I think the Ultra HD story, I hope, was transferred to the audience, and of course we are very interested by the feedback of people, what they think, if it's technical enough or not. I think that was interesting to have that. I'm still trying to push my story on how to bring the quality of experience to end user, because if everybody moves to digital, if you try and you fail, what do? What is the real measures we need at the industry? What are the steps we need to take? And my last comment would be to bring maybe more innovation, not only on the technology side, but also on the business model side.
Yeah.
And sometimes I feel people are pushing very much the technology aspect. I would like to hear stories of people who have been able to disrupt a market with a different business approach. I keep asking, okay, in the music industry, Spotify is doing great with their freemium model. How come nobody is trying freemium on video? Hulu is doing that in US. Molotov didn't really succeed in France with 4.5 million subs. Is there a way to get more people, open new market? I know this country is challenged on the ARPU. What can you do to bring the people to your service? Free trial, Netflix style. Sorry, I'm going to put another time Netflix in my mouth. But what can be done? And how can you bring stories from outside this region to this conference next year?
Thank you. Can I ask Dina and Elena? Elena?
Yes, they're here. And because
To come on stage, please.
Because we are stuck due to the rain, we have at least 40 minutes more for your discussion.
Oh, that's great.
I can make a
Wonderful.
replacement. I mean,
That's all I wanted to hear.
Dobby and Irena, for example, fireside. Yeah, so thank you very much, Elena. I had the honor of opening the conference. Dina, I mean, for those of you who don't know, this is Dina, who made everything happen, the lady behind the scenes, behind all the correspondence. And Elena, of course, she has been 50% co-organizing everything with me. She's just a little bit stage shy. So that's why she didn't want to participate in discussion. So I had the honor of opening the conference. I think that it is fair that you have the honor of closing it.
Great, thank you. I just wanted to thank you all the speakers, all the participants, the audience, the organizer, Dina, Stanley, and everyone for the great contribution to this event. And I'm really looking forward to see you next year in Valencia and maybe even in Sofia.
Thank you.